charitable to somebody who's pushing 50. So therefore, be that as it may, good morning to all of you, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Praveen Swami is an extremely erudite and brilliant mind on strategic affairs. And so therefore, when he tries to extrapolate strategic affairs to politics, it becomes even far more profound. So the fundamental shift, as I see it, has been the emergence of the new media over the past couple of years. The internet was perhaps the most audacious experiment with anarchy, and it has succeeded. The cyberspace today represents the largest ungoverned space on planet Earth. Never before in the history of mankind had so much power been there in the hands of so many people. And so therefore what you see emerging and unfolding, even in India's context where you have now millions and millions of people on new media, is a tale of two civilizations. A physical civilization which emerged over the millennia and a virtual civilization which has evolved. And what has fundamentally changed, the paradigm which has fundamentally changed, is that communication to people has become far more personal, it has become far more direct. So therefore, from a top-down communication which possibly spanned through the last 4 or 5 decades, where it was more in the broadcast mode, which is like all of us trying to talk to you. The democratization of the information space is the paradigm shift which has taken place. Now, how it is going to impact elections, is something that we'll have to wait and watch in 2014 because it has come to full bloom. In fact, my colleague, who works with us, Mr. Sumbli, he was telling me the other day, in my own constituency in Ludhiana, we have how many people on new media? 1 million people on new media. So therefore, that's the fundamental shift which I think has taken place. The rest, of course, is par for the course, and the discourse will go on.
Pinky Anand, it's interesting Manish would talk about this democratization of information because this also seems to be an election where leadership and leaders, individual personalities, seem important in a way they haven't been to quite the same degree in any past Indian election.
I think he's got quite a point actually. Because the power when it is with people, when they are discussing, the power which is with the people, which is taken away from the media introduction of the entire situation. Today, I think the media has a decisive role in regulating the conduct of people, the minds of people, the inclination of people at times. Because earlier that information wasn't available. Today, I find that everybody, including from the driver to the servant, is discussing politics. So there is this democratization of politics because they've seen it all. And that process is something which is, of course, very desirable. The second feature that you're talking about, personalities. I think that it's become a time where today, instead of being only a parliamentary kind of elections, it is becoming, in a way, a presidential kind of elections, where the personalities matter a lot. And elections, at least as far as particularly the BJP is concerned, we are fighting on the banner of Mr. Narendra Modi and his personality and the way he is able to transform Indian politics. So I think we are actually undergoing another very important feature, Praveer. I think we are facing today a politics of rage of people against the existing situation as it happens on the ground, and a politics of expectation. And people's expectation, because of the new social media, because of the media itself, because of knowledge and information and IT, people's expectation is as if they wanted it yesterday. And the final feature, the youth. The large contingent of youth, I think even the Delhi elections have shown a substantial transformation of politics because of the presence of the youth who, A, are energetic, B, being first-time voters, they have to vote, and they are inclined to vote. You've seen it with the very high percentage of voting which happened in Delhi. So therefore, this youth factor which has come into the Indian polity, and in fact is responsible for a transformation of even the commercial concern of the world in general, is something which is going to be extremely important in Indian elections today and Indian democracy.
Shazia Ilmi, your party has of course been the big beneficiary, if you like, of this transformation of communication that's taken place in the in recent years. You've had a stick ride with the media. Is the Aam Aadmi Party phenomenon conceivable without this sort of democratized internet, young people space? Or was this the outcome of pent-up rage of various kinds in much the same way the VP Singh phenomenon earlier or various other upsurges we've had in Indian politics were? Are we seeing something fundamentally new or just outbursts of anger with the system as it exists of the kind we've had before?
No, I think the answer is yes and no. I would like to say that we have benefited from the emergence of new media. But if you look at media and how it works, and I have represented media and I've been a part of it, if you see how where media derives its strength from in terms of ad revenue and eyeballs and the promoter interest, you realize it couldn't be media alone because there are as many people in media, owning media, who we have actually gone against. So before the Delhi elections, we were virtually written off. Every survey about Aam Aadmi Party was giving us either writing an obituary or giving us 6 to 12 seats. There is something that is happening that is beyond media. And I think it's this whole new civic engagement, this urban stirring, and which is going further. This anger that is translating into some kind of hope, something which engages people, enraged citizens become engaged citizens through something positive, through channelization of their anger, their rage, their helplessness into something concrete and actionable that they want to see. Is the ability of the youth to really ask questions. It's taking them there and making them stand out there and say, look, we want answers. We want better governance. We want to know where money is going. We want to know who's going to bell the cat. We want to know why CBI is not independent. We want to know who's getting paid and how much. We want answers to transparency. I think a lot of new questions have come up in the public domain, and answers are being given by different parties in different ways. But definitely it's a combination of just not media alone. Because if you look at media, it's about form and content. So forms keep changing, new media keeps coming. But what is the messaging? What is the substance? And I think there, in creating that content, and asking those questions, and taking all these subjects and a slew of it to the public domain with alternative politics has been really the mainstay of Aam Aadmi Party, and that would be the big takeaway.
I wanted to I'll come back in a minute to some of the questions you raised, but I wanted to ask Manish this question of alternative politics, youth expectations. On the one, we hear a lot about this, but in terms of nitty-gritty, when we actually look at these 3-star candidates we have now, 4-star candidates we have in various places, there isn't that much debate actually on fundamentals. No one disagrees with the RTI. No one says that corruption is a good thing. Nobody says that the CBI ought not be independent. Are we really seeing a new politics or just a new sort of gloss? Is there a new animal loose among these young voters you spoke of, or have we just painted lipstick on a pig?
Well, pig with the lipstick is not a very pleasant thought early in the morning. But, the alternative politics that you talked about. Let me take you back two things. First of all, what Pinky had said about personalities. See, personalities have always played a role in Indian politics. From 1947 to 1964, the first Prime Minister of India, Jawaharlal Nehru. Then, subsequently, Mrs. Indira Gandhi, for a very long time, till her assassination in 84. Mr. Rajiv Gandhi. Even for that matter, Mr. Atal Bihari Vajpayee. And then, you had the UPA with Mrs. Sonia Gandhi and Dr. Manmohan Singh. So therefore, it's not that personalities are a new phenomena to Indian politics. But then, what do you think has changed? And I think what has changed is that the democratized discourse is now making people focus essentially on issues. And therefore, that is where politics or politicians are missing the point, whereby they feel that a personality centric approach will be able to carry them through. I recall when I was, the president of the National Students' Union of India in 1988, we had lowered the voting age from 21 to 18 years, which brought millions and millions of young people, into the electoral mainstream. So therefore, youth aspirations, youth expectations, the civic engagement that Shazia talked about, I don't think are really new phenomena in Indian politics. It's just that it comes back with a different nuance. What has changed, and that's where I take you back to the new media, is the ability of people not only to engage with their representatives, in a far more sustained manner, but more importantly to even engage with each other. So therefore, as we go along, you'll find uh, people sifting the gloss from the substance, and the focus will come back on issues. Whether it happens in the 2014 elections, I think the jury's out on that. But I am very sanguine that over a period of time, it would definitely happen.
Thank you, Anand. I mean, on this question of issues, some would argue that you see in the BJP an effort to move away from the issues that it rode to power on in the first place, Hindutva, the Babri Masjid, and to come to much more sort of non-controversial issues of governance, issues of administration. Is that partly a consequence of this democratization that it's no longer good enough to appeal to a small, that by being as general and vague as possible? Are we seeing the rise of an era of political vagueness?
I wouldn't say political vagueness. I think that's the only part of your statement I don't agree with. The rest is your question is almost rhetorical. You've answered most of the questions that you asked. However, let me say this. Yes, today you're talking about the entire theory of aspirational politics, where the people are wanting accountability, and therefore every political leader and every political party is answerable to the lot of the people, because there is no other way to go. You have to ultimately address, as I said earlier, the youth of the country, which has its own aspirations and which will not be let down in any manner with what they want to happen, in particular, let us say, development or governance. I think the key issues that concern the country today are A, corruption, B, governance, in a very broad way. There could be more, but broadly these are the two key issues that concern the people. And of course, political parties are representatives of the people, and you have to address the concerns of the entire communities at large. And that is where at least the BJP is headed for. In fact, one of the issues that Manish said, personalities are not unknown to Indian politics. He is correct to some extent. However, I think earlier the difference in politics was that parties themselves came out with agendas which ultimately led the way for the democracy and the happening of elections and the decision-making process. Today the people are in a participative democracy. So today the people also control, in a sense, what is the issues in question, what are the issues in question, and how they should be addressed, and in fact literally marks are being given. On one front also I want to address what Shazia said about the media not playing such an important role because media has its own vested interests. I don't think in the history of Indian politics you have seen the rise of any party in the nature of Aam Aadmi Party rising to such a level in, of course, a limited way in Delhi in such a short time. And I don't think it was, in fact, yesterday Arnav was having a discussion on the RTI application of Devashish, and the address was to the Aam Aadmi Party as to why they didn't respond. And he was saying that, when we were with you, we were very good. Now we are asking questions, so we are very bad. So media, of course, does play a very important role and has played. So I don't think that is something which anybody can contend with. But that is not only media. Media as in social media, in the sense of the net, the virtual space, has had its own contribution definitely to people asking new questions, to people wanting new answers.
I must take this up before you ask me a question. There's a PIO for the Chief Secretary and one for Chief Minister. When this application came and we've had a press statement, it went to the Chief Secretary, who did or did not answer. It has nothing to do with the Chief Minister's office. neither was it stonewalled. So this is there's a little bit of a story being created here. It has nothing to do with reluctance of anybody from Aam Aadmi Party, and I'm talking about the government and not the party actually, which has come in the way. This went to Chief Secretary.
It went to 22 departments, Shazia. It went to
Shazia,
22
We have a statement.
departments.
We actually have a statement.
It's wonderful. It's wonderful to see the Aam Aadmi Party becoming like every other party and blaming a bureaucrat for what went wrong.
No, not at all. But
Our readers will be familiar, and we've carried at length
the details.
the details of this controversy. But what I wanted to ask was actually a final question on this youth and democratization business before moving on. Is this an unmixed blessing, Shazia and me? Many people would argue that in the Indian context, simply giving people more of a say in their affairs might not be a bad thing, but it's not necessarily a solution. And here's why. In our society, one of the principal sources of tyranny isn't government or the state, it's tradition, it's what people do. As women activists, for example, in this region, particularly Haryana, the fringes of Delhi, have long pointed out. My question is this. It's all very well to say people should forge their own destinies, and that's fine. But you only have to go to a Delhi traffic light to find out that people aren't necessarily very good at forging their destiny in a sensible way, which is stopping when the light is red. Is this sort of new political language of the Aam Aadmi Party about democratization actually a substitute for governance and administration?
Yes, from representative democracy that we see, we would like it to be more participatory in nature, which would mean that it would not just be relegated, the role of citizen would not just be relegated to casting a vote once in 5 years, but actually having a say in the legislation. It has little to do with traffic lights, and I think traffic rules should follow. So I wish you didn't trivialize a very serious issue that is being discussed here. And it's like when you talk about Mohalla Sabhas and Swaraj, the whole idea is, which has already been there in the Panchayati Raj, is devolution. Because there is a huge disconnect of the political class with the people. Because there is anti-defection law, whereby the MP has to actually go by what the party whip says instead of asking the constituency. If you have mechanisms whereby the elected representatives go to people, seek their opinion on public health, on schools, on how the contracts have been given for a road which keeps breaking down, and to have some transparency in system, it would mean better governance. So instead of trivializing it and making it about a traffic light and about women being denied the basic right, because that would be unconstitutional and that would not be supported by this. This is purely in the domain of public health and public expenditure and how budgets are made and for public utilities.
I'll pick on that trivial question because this city has more people die every year because of those red lights than any other comparable city in the world. So I come back to this question of how you actually govern. If you don't have people stopping at red lights, or you have a participatory consensus on red lights.
I think the highest number of road accidents also is there. More people die of road accidents than anything else.
I question your characterization of that issue in this city anyway. It's trivial.
No, I was talking about when you talked about administration and governance and Suraj is what you were talking about. I was talking about that. I was not saying that Aam Aadmi Party will say go break all the lights and that's how you will be more democratic. So I was trying to look at the connection you were making, and I was trying to make a deeper connection between people's rights to know who the contractors are, why money is being spent on something and not something else. In Kuli camp, for instance, for years, there is no toilet, so women go actually defecate out in the open. All they want is access to a public toilet. MLA has 4 crores every year, and list of permissible works, and I've seen it. Public toilets for jugis is part of the plan. But many women go out there and they've been demanding this year after year. Why can't they be given a clean public toilet? That's what he's saying. That would be part of Mohalla Sabha. This was it because people want that, but money would be spent on, let's say, benches with somebody's name. In parks where there are no plants or trees or even land. So you wonder why this is happening. So you want people to say, hey, this is our money. Can we spend it on what we need? So this is what we need.
I'd be curious what you have to say about this, Manish Tewari, because a lot of this sounds like what your party leader, Rahul Gandhi, actually has to say on a quite regular basis.
Has begun saying now.
Panchayati Raj, participation?
I'll again take you back to the whole debate in Panchayati Raj. See, the genesis of the debate in Panchayati Raj actually kicked off in 1987. And the genesis was that late Mr. Rajiv Gandhi felt that there were only 750 members of parliament and about 5,000 legislators who were a part of the democratic process, which excluded a large number of people. And so therefore it was felt that there is a need to institutionalize the third tier of government by ensuring that panchayat, block committee, zilla parishad, municipal corporation, notified area committee elections happen regularly. And in fact, interestingly, that Panchayati Raj bill in 1989 did not get through the Rajya Sabha because the Bharatiya Janata Party decided to vote against it. If you would recall, that very bill fell on the floor of the House, and that is when we went in for the 1989 elections. Subsequently, in 1993, through the 73rd, 74th Constitutional Amendment, we were able to get it through. So therefore, the devolution which Shazia is talking about, the Gram Sabhas, the Mohalla committees, are already institutionalized in the Constitution.
Okay,
But you see, there is a more fundamental question. And the more fundamental question is about a constitutional compact. You see, the ground norm, insofar as the Indian Republic is concerned, is the Indian Constitution, which allows you to agitate. But when you become a part of the government, when you become a part of the establishment, you are expected to behave in a certain manner. And if you, try and run the gauntlet on that constitutional propriety, then I'm afraid you're breaking down the federal state compact, which is at the heart of the governance system in India. And that is where the Aam Aadmi Party has to make that transition from being an agitator to an administrator.
To ask you in just one line, Manish, if I may, before going on to Pinky on this question. There will be young people in this audience who may turn around and say, what is this constitutional compact worth if that 4 crores still leads to a park bench with somebody's name in it, but I still don't have a job? What would your answer be to them?
Well, my answer is twofold. First of all, I have a private member's bill which talked about relaxing the rigors of the anti-defection law. So therefore, members of parliament would be able to, far better participate rather than being whip-driven. In fact, it is a part of this 15th Lok Sabha itself, but private members' bills don't go through. They are essentially to flag issues. But I'm glad if some people would come forth and support that idea. On MP lands, a lot of people like us, feel that MP lands and the discretionary funds which are available should not be there. For example, why should I really decide arbitrarily where a particular amount of money should go? It should be a part of the planned developmental activity. So this whole concept of discretionary funds, whether 4 crores should be going through park benches or they should be going to toilets, it's a question of the priority which that particular public representative has. But why should we have that priority? Why should it not be a part of the planned developmental exercise which a government undertakes? So I think fundamentally this discretion itself is something which needs to be debated. It went up to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court upheld the MP lands, but I can tell you a large number of members of parliament, do feel that they would be much better off without this discretion.
Quickly, at a philosophical level, do you agree with this idea that decentralization, seemingly endless decentralization, actually addresses the problem? Because your party is marketing, if I may use that word in this election, something quite different, who are chief ministers who have centralized power and use that highly centralized power to bring about what your party says is very effective and stellar governance.
You're right. Praveen, what we have been advocating is ultimately the process of a parliamentary democracy where people have been elected, representatives have been elected by the people, and those people are acting, because governance cannot be done at the behest of Jan Adalats or Jan Lok Sabhas or Jan Panchayatis or whatever, or Mohalla Samitis. Today, you've seen the outcome of all these kind of decisions which are sought to be made on the roads. It is very nice to talk about a social movement, which deals with people at the grassroots to say, let everybody take a decision. But it's like the traffic light incident you said. If at a traffic light, one person says, I want to cross it on a green light, the other says on a red, and the third on an orange, I'm afraid you will have nothing less than chaos, which is what Delhi has been facing day in and day out. Take the Jan Lokpal bill. The whole question of bringing the Jan Lokpal bill in a public space when it is supposed to be before an assembly session, without the recommendation of the Lieutenant Governor, without the concurrence of the President or the Union Ministry, where are you going to be able to have this? It's not good enough for any party, whether it's Aam Aadmi Party or any party, to say, well, we have the Constitution, we sworn by the Constitution, we abide by the Constitution, but we don't care about the Constitution. You just can't do that. When, I'm sorry, it's not the words I'm saying, it's a concept I was saying. You're right, you haven't used the words. But effectively, if you don't go by what the Constitution says, you are bringing about sheer anarchy. Now, a social movement as an anarchical concept is very good. I'm sure the people of this country have also, to some extent, the city have supported that kind of action as an anarchy, because a revolution was kind of wanted against the established forces, particularly the UP and the Delhi elections. But beyond that, to say a social anarchical movement can continue to have, at the Rail Bhavan you have Dharna, when 144 is in place, the Republic Day is round the corner, people are just being created havoc, 4 metro stations are closed down, children are being taken by road to go to their schools and whatever else is concerned. I think we've come to a high time where we've got to take account of what we do want as governance. Governance is distinguished from revolution. Government is distinguished from anarchy. The same thing happened in America. You had muckrakers. In the 20th century, all the literary and the other social activists came together and movement started. But ultimately, it didn't go for anything because it was just a lot of noise and the balloon burst.
I'm going to give Shazia a fair chance to respond to this.
Yes.
And I'm hoping she's actually going to say that anarchy
I
is not a
can't wait.
dirty word.
Yes, I can't wait, really. So lots of things here. And it's nice to know, to see that BJP has less to speak for itself than, baying for AAP's blood. It says a lot about where AAP stands vis-a-vis BJP. So thank you so much for being fixated on us and what we do. We appreciate it. That's the whole idea. Okay,
Question came
the
in that
AAP
fashion,
effect.
Shazia. I was addressing
Some
the
wonderful
question.
things have happened. For the very first time, maybe since the JP movement, but now let's talk about what's happened in the last 3 decades. For the very first time, just regular folks who did not have a chance to contest elections because they did not have the required amount of money, they didn't know the right people, they were not daughters of Sharad Pawar and Agatha Sangma and Mulli Devra. For these reasons and many more, just regular people in Delhi who would never have a chance contested elections. Yes, not a single rupee was spent in getting the ticket. And if my 2 esteemed panelists were to say that all the tickets are given in the party based on merit and piety, nobody would believe it really. Because I don't have evidence that, what is the process of the ticket, for giving a ticket for a seat, for a winnable seat or otherwise. That's one. 2, and the very important part of this is that when we talk about cadres and infrastructure, I had as polling agents and booth agents a retired Fauji, a slumwala, an IIT Delhi student, a very busy housewife who was sitting, and so they engaged with the processes of what does it mean to be a booth agent, a counting agent, a polling agent, without taking a single rupee. Third, and most importantly, while all other parties were offering money to the voters, we were actually asking them for 5 and 10 rupees, which was hilarious because the juggi walas would ask us and everybody कि हमें तो यहाँ से इतना शराब मिला, इतनी हमें कंबल मिले, आप हमें क्या दे रहे हैं? हमने कहा हम कुछ देंगे नहीं, लेकिन आपसे 10 रुपए जरूर लेंगे. So that was, those were emotional moments when street vendors and fruit walas would give us 100 rupees and 10 rupees, saying that we're sick and tired of the system. So going beyond platitudes and these great words, and we all believe in constitution, and anarchy is a great buzzword, but what is anarchy? Anarchy is when a system does not work, when it does not respond to the needs of people. That is anarchy that we have to talk about. And if you have to be an anarchist, to counter a larger anarchy that is in place, that is, killing the idea of India, that is removing people from the idea of democracy, where the idea of multiple party democracy system is used against the very people for whom it's meant for. then it's important to go out there and voice your opinion, be there on the street or wherever. Just like every protester has a right to be on the street to protest, even a chief minister has a right. ARP effect, this is ARP effect in Delhi. Let me talk about ARP effect all over. Suddenly BJP walas are wearing the saffron two-piece. Vasundhara Raje Scindia has decided to do away with the trappings of power and give up her palatial bungalow, CM's bungalow. Shivraj Singh Chauhan suddenly realized he needs to visit the night shelter. Narendra Modi is very concerned and suddenly about his chai wala roots, and the chai stalls are being made everywhere. Sanjay Nirutam is asking for power cuts, and there is a 20% cut in Maharashtra for the same. Anurag Thakur in Himachal suddenly decided to do an expose against Veerbhadra Singh. So I think all these are wonderful signs, and these are ARP effects not only in Delhi but all over India. Kiran Reddy also has become a big protester and has now come there to join the bandwagon of CMs who protest. So I think it's great. It's great for austerity measures. It's great for transparency. It's great for calling a spade and going beyond platitudes. And so if a spin doctors would give this word anarchy, because earlier it was Naxalites, rabble rousers, anti-national, now it's anarchy. So be it. Some people have called us gutter snipes and what have you. We welcome that. But anything that works, and if we seek police accountability a certain way, we will continue to do it as per the rules given by the very constitution that most kleptocrats seek to protect. And in this democracy in this kleptocracy that masquerades as democracy right now, if people will rise up and talk about questions and even ask off up, that is equally important. I think it's important to go there. With the Swaraj bill, even the ARP MLAs will not have the discretionary powers. They will have to go to the people and be forced to do what they want.
So we're going to have
Even
an
they won't have
election
the
every
discretionary
3
power.
months.
No, we won't. No, we won't. See, it's very easy to tweak it and take it somewhere. It's very easy to make pot shots. But when some certain systems work a certain way, and when you know that they're not, instead of questioning always whether this would work or not, just see what is not working. So when something is not working, you think of something better. It's like the old order changes, giving place to new.
Okay. And
And God
I
forgives
want
himself in
to
many ways.
bring Manish into this question of the old order. He, like me, is too young to remember that we had a chief minister called Manik Frugal Life. There was a time when people in both the Congress and the BJP certainly were very distant from the kinds of VIP culture. You've had chief ministers in what you might call the saintly mode of Indian politics, which Arvind Kejriwal has been adroitly a part of.
Has he been a part of that?
Well, I saw him pull up myself at the Taj Hotel the other day in his little car. And he's not the only one. And this is the question I had for Manish, really. Why has this imagery of frugality, no red lights, become so important? And does this mark a moment of change for politicians? Does the 3 lakh rupee assembly election put pressure on every political party to reform in some fundamental way?
Well, I think you need to make a distinction between substance and gloss. The fact is that if you do choose to live in a frugal manner, that's a personal choice. And you do not, and I said if you do decide to make a decision to live in a particular manner, that is a personal choice. You don't need to make a song and dance about it. I've been a member of parliament now for 5 years, a minister for over 2 years now. I live in a 2.5 bedroom flat in Safdarjung Enclave. I have not made a song and dance about it. I do not live in my official accommodation. I use it only for the purposes of meeting my constituents. But I have not gone around the whole town, tom-tomming it, which incidentally, is a part of the place from where Shazia contested her election. So therefore, the fact is that these are personal choices. But what the electorate is concerned about is whether you can deliver on governance. And ARP, is not the first phenomena of Indian politics. I recall 1983 in Andhra Pradesh. Mr. NTR came out of nowhere and became a chief minister. And it was an absolute landslide. And then the Telugu Desam party became a mainstream establishmentarian party. I remember 1985 Assam. Prafulla Mahanta, Brigu Phukan, all these guys went directly from the hostels to the chief minister's bungalow. And the AGP over a period of time has now been trying to survive. The BSP experience. And I can go on chapter and verse way back to 1947 of different political forces who've come into the mainstream and who've enriched the mainstream. But the question is about sustenance and survivability. So the real challenge for the Aam Aadmi Party, and I do wish them well, is whether they are able to really sustain, whether they are able to really survive. And as I earlier pointed out, that they raised a large number of issues, some legitimate, some maybe not so legitimate. The people decided to give them a mandate. And now what the people expect of them is not rhetoric or shooting the breeze. They expect them to deliver on the promises they have made. They expect them to deliver on governance. So therefore, this so-called AAP effect and the Manik Sarkar that you were referring to, I can possibly rattle off the names of maybe 100 people I know in the Congress party, or even for that matter in other parties, the Communist Party. My colleague and friend D. Raja, I remember when his asset and liability statements was published, because all members of parliament have to submit that. Mr. Raja did not have a single rupee to his name. But you do not have, Mr. Raja making a song and dance about that austerity, because that's a personal choice. So eventually in the 21st century, what the people of India really want is that you walk the talk, deliver on governance, and see whether the 21st century can be a China-India century and not only a China century. I think that's the fundamental challenge for us as a country.
Thank you, Anand. It's great to say that people's personal lives and the way they choose to live them are a matter of concern only for them. As someone who lives in this city, would you deny that having a chief minister who roams around in a rickety wagoner isn't giving people a powerful message that they want to be hearing? That they're tired of political excess, of crores of rupees spent, of elections which just seem to be sinkholes for money. Wouldn't you, as a political leader, like to see that change? And Manish, I can see Manish looking at his watch, so I promise that we just one more very quick round of questions.
No, Praveen, I think you have a point. I mean, there is something which the people are looking for as far as transformation is concerned. So it is an interesting concept when you talk about issues like austerity, but I don't quite think it ultimately matters to the people. It is a nice theoretical in a drawing room discussion to say a chief minister who's available on a rickety Maruti, or of course the chief minister has also made a request for two big size bungalows to be allotted to him, which is the subject matter of the RTI issue which has been coming up. But that's another matter, and then there's proclamation that what was wanted is not a big accommodation at this point of time. So let's not waste time on how chief ministers or the MLAs or the ministers in Delhi choose to live. That is their choice, as Manish rightly said, whether in a bungalow or whether in a house or whether in a flat. That is purely a matter of personal choice. I think what is only important for the people is deliverance of governance. What people want is a transformation, definitely, and new answers and quick answers. That for sure is something which people want. But people don't want Jan Adalats where the police have to be called in to help out, because governance cannot be run ultimately in the middle of the road. Referendums do not come in a democracy, in a parliamentary democracy, where people haven't given up the existing system altogether. It's not as if people are saying nothing exists on the face of India which is called democracy. Democracy exists. There is very much a choice of parliamentary democracy. There is a voting for people to take decisions. Why? Because at the referendum level, these decisions are only taken when there is either dictatorship or there is sheer anarchy on the roads, when only people can decide then what to do. People's decisions cannot take place in this fashion. Governance is a must. And just on that one question that you'd asked me about BJP's issues on various states and how the performance has been, we see the election results which have happened in the last elections of the states in Chhattisgarh, in Madhya Pradesh, in Rajasthan, and for that matter, to some extent in Delhi. I mean, there has been a 3.5 to 0 result which has been shown in these elections, and it has been purely on the performance of the governments led by the chief ministers and not by a simple situation of a referendum by the people. So I think you are having a confirmation of the parliamentary democracy. What you are having, on the other hand, is a question mark area where people want some more answers for sure, and that we have to give. All political parties have to render.
Shasi, I mean, democracy, again, to come back to a subject we touched on, is a great thing. And it's something certainly people in this city, people in this country value deeply. What are the limits to this? How do you balance the wisdom of groups of people with the rights of individuals? I don't want my neighbors calling the police on me because they don't like my lifestyle or think that I'm doing something bad. I'm sure you wouldn't. Uh, how does this new politics intend to balance out our collective entitlements with hard fought for personal freedoms?
Uh, Praveen, I think there's a misunderstanding that you seem to have regarding what we propose to do vis-a-vis Swaraj and people. I think they're totally divorced from each other, and there is not even an area where it overlaps. When we talk about Swaraj and the bill, it is anything that violates the constitutional rights of people and individual freedom. It's not in its purview. It is the public expenditure that I keep talking about. It is all that comes in purview of Prevention of Corruption Act. It is all about the budgets. For instance, if people feel in the Sarkari school that teachers do not come, they should have a right to tell the MLA and the officials that they need 4 teachers instead of 2. It has nothing to do with your personal freedom and whether you want to have a drink in the night or not.
So Swaraj is in Khirki village
No.
2 weeks ago.
No, it isn't. It's also that because when people come to you asking for help, it is that. But there are 2 things. One is an MLA who represents his constituency, because you've taken me to yet another topic, so I'll go there.
Just
No, I can see what you're doing. I can see, which is fine. But I'm ready to answer that. Let me go back to Swaraj. So when we talk about the first question that you asked about personal freedom, anything that violates the constitution, anything that is against what the rule of law stands for, will definitely not be a part of it. But when elected representatives are there and public funds are used for something, all citizens, what we are asking for is citizens to have a say in how those funds are being spent. What is the trail? Why is money being spent on this and not the other? Why is there a budget for education which is so and so, yet schools don't work? Which is why even for private schools, we have got a list because it affects people. It has nothing to do with somebody who wants to wear a skirt or wants to smoke a cigarette. They're totally different. So that's why I think the idea gets trivialized. So I wish you read a little bit about Swaraj Bill, then maybe you would not say this. And second question that you asked about Khidki extension, I would love to take that. I think what Somnath did, and I apologized on his behalf on the language he used, but he wrote to the SHO 3 times, he made 6 complaints, and I saw every bit of the footage where there was nothing racist or sexist. We were looking at the criminality and not the nationality. Yes, there was vigilanteism. Yes, 6 times he went there and the cops should have done something about it, but they did not. So that is different from the idea of Swaraj. And if he uses intemperate language, if it's a violation of rights, it's wrong. But there were 3 Ugandan women, and that story has been hushed up for some strange reason, who actually have spoken about that they came to India as students. And they came to ARP and they told us that
it hasn't been hushed up. It's been on our front page for 2 days running.
Maybe Hindu, but it's not anywhere else. These 3 Ugandan women actually came to us and they said the police refused to record their complaint. They were scared. I met them. They were trembling when they spoke to us. And they said whether the SHO, the local SHO, or the police, or even this drug cartel, these are students who are being forced into prostitution. They don't have their passports. So when victims are played against victims politically, we must sift and sieve and see what exactly are we talking about. Are we giving something a racist slur, sexist slur politically, or are we looking at the merits of the case? Yes, there are certain things that should not have been done. But what do you do when citizens go again and again and they see something happening in the neighborhood which they have a problem with? Should he have just pushed the files and called up the ACP and said something will happen? Maybe Arvind could have just said that, Delhi police hamare under nahi aati. Nothing would have happened. And the system would have gone on. But he went to the next step and said, no, we want it. Section 144 was not imposed by Aam Aadmi Party, but by the centre. Metros were closed by them. So this is a misnomer. I would also make a gentle correction to what Manish said. and it has nothing to do with the debate, Manish. But RK Puram does not come in your constituency. After the delimitation, no Safdarjung enclave.
Okay, we can debate Safdarjung enclaves constituency delimitation.
No.
But
When you say, no, that's what you said when you say.
I trust you did not vote for Shazia.
I'm sure not.
Praveen, you have to correct that because I think ultimately he did, directly or indirectly.
I'm saying Manish is not part of it.
We're almost out of time.
If Shazia would have contested from the Congress, she would have got my vote, definitely.
If there.
We're almost out of time, so I'll close with a question, perhaps giving Shazia the first go at this. But just in a brief minute, what does a post-2014 India look like? There have been all kinds of discussions in recent months, in recent years, with people even saying that to even maybe presidential governance. You have new political parties coming out with very radical and different ideas. So just in a nutshell, do you see Indian political life continuing as usual after 2014? Or are we reaching a point of transformation where something fundamentally different is going to happen? And if so, what might that fundamentally different thing be? I'll give Shazia first go and end with Manish just for variety.
With your kind permission, Manish.
All yours. All yours.
I think very important questions have been asked on poll funding, for instance, on criminalization of politics. I think 2014 looks like, to me, a confused scenario where there is actually a personality cult war being played out with no real concrete specifics being given on any of, whether it's economic policy or whether it's social security benefits. I feel important questions like criminalization of politics, nepotism, dynastic succession, because 1/3 of a parliament right now actually admits to having criminal records against them. 1/3 of parliamentarians are there because of the last names, because of dynastic succession. So I think, and of course in a country where half of India actually has to again defecate out in the open because they have no access to public toilets, and only 25% of Indians actually have safe drinking water. So if you look at this entire scenario and see that how has this multiple party democracy helped us, I think it's important to say what they've delivered and what they've not. Instead of tom-tomming the various social security benefits and others doing the same, I think they'll have to go deeper and give specific answers to transparency, to questions on transparency, to criminalization of politics, to the whole opaque system in which tickets are handed out, to this whole system of how the funding happens of elections. And I think BJP and Congress, and this would be my appeal to them, that they should come clean on the poll funding. It's important that they give us a clear idea as to how the funds are coming and how it will be spent, and also to come in the purview of RTI, which they have been kind of fighting shy of.
So if I can just compress that to a sentence, you think the house is needs cleaning, but you don't think the house needs to be demolished and a new one built.
No, nobody said that.
Okay.
Which is why we're another party like anyone else.
Thank you, Anna.
I think, in fact, whatever I've seen of the last couple of years and the various happenings and the transformations and the new challenges that have come around in democracy, there has been no challenge to the parliamentary democracy system. So definitely the House still seems to stand as far as I'm concerned. New questions are there, new issues are there, new challenges are there, and there is some transformation as to, for example, some of the issues that Shazia has raised are relevant. Criminalization of politics is a major issue. But poll funding, for example, I think is being torn by Aam Aadmi Party. There is accountability with the Election Commission, there is accountability with the tax. Ticket handing over, etc., these issues I don't think are of any material concern to anybody, because just saying how a party functions within itself, let's say for example how the Hindu functions within itself and how it makes its decision, cannot be the subject matter of a discussion on that platform.
In fairness, if we were taking bribes from corporate sponsors
bribes.
to run stories, you'd be
That's right. But if that is the process, you're right. I think Praveen has raised certain interesting issues there, but that is the course of events.
Not us.
But not us, it's a good question. So be that as it may, we are into new challenges, but I think the only real issues that matter to this entire youthful nation, which has the largest youth in the entire world, is of development. We are having an extremely bad growth rate at this point of time, 5% and less, inflation, deficits. We really need to get hold of ourselves and hand it, and definitely it's not going to be by bringing Mohalla Samitis into place. Mohalla Samitis have an internal role, but so do Khap Panchayat. So you've got to decide to what extent you want
Okay.
decentralization to happen.
I'll give Manish the last word, and I wanted you to have the last word because you have a leader who said there is something called the system, and that thing called the system needs to change. Has the time come for some sort of fundamental change?
No, I think you've asked a very fundamental question. You see, on the left, you have about 200 odd districts of India, where there's a very serious challenge of left-wing extremism, where people do not believe, or the left-wing extremists do not believe, in the Indian state as it is constituted. They would want the violent overthrow of the Indian state. In the center, you have a dysfunctional legislative system. Without pointing fingers at anybody, I think all of us collectively have elevated disruption to a fine art, whereby we've paralyzed our legislative institutions completely. And on the right, you have forces which are still evolving, and so therefore anarchy, which is a state of statelessness, transiting to representative democracy or whatever it is, are new concepts, which are possibly trying to find their feet. So therefore, there is a serious challenge to parliamentary democracy as it exists today. When I turn on the television at 11 o'clock in the morning, if I'm sitting in my office and all I see is disruption, I ask myself this question every morning. Do I actually want to request my party leadership to give me a ticket to come back to this chaos, which I have been seeing for the last 5 years? Every morning I wake up asking myself that question. So therefore, we have a problem. And we need to understand that this problem requires to be fixed. If we do not run our legislative institutions properly, if we do not run our government in accordance with the Constitution, I'm afraid, we are not looking at elevated growth rates. We are not going to look at political stability, which incidentally for 10 years, the UPA has provided to this country, which became the basis for a large number of other things which happened. So therefore, we are in an existential crisis as a democracy. And therefore, I think everybody will be well served to see that if we believe in parliamentary democracy, we must ensure that those institutions start functioning.
Just like to very quickly thank you all for coming. Shazia, of course, for coming a long way. Pinky for stepping in. Prakash Javadekar was originally supposed to come, but had an unfortunate tragedy in his family. Had to leave. So thank you very much for sparing time on a Saturday morning. And Manish, we will leave you to go to the next appointment. Thank you so much.